What is going on, Crisis actors? It is episode 985 of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett. We were down to the wire on this one. I made it live at 3 p.m. And with me today is special guest co-host. Introduce yourself, please.
This is Colonel Kurtz. What is up? It was my fault. It was never Brett's. He's uber punctual. But I just
what happened?
Well, I had heard that at the local thrift store, they had these awesome Hanson Nirvana shirts, and so I just had to run down and get one. No, we're in the middle of an ice storm here, and I was an idiot. I went out to get some food, and then on the way back, it was like, oh yeah, it's everybody's driving like 5 miles an hour.
So yeah, I mean, I can't even complain about not being punctual because we kind of knew that this was going to happen. We did not have shows Thursday and Friday because me and Olivia, we were out of town. There was a death in the family. So
you were in Michigan, right?
We were in Michigan, and there was there was some snow. They got like 3 to 5 inches, but like Michigan snow is not the same thing as like Michigan Midwest snow isn't the same thing as snow out here, meaning that it's like unbelievably cold out there, but like I'm from Minnesota, so I'm very much used to that. But snow out there is like, it's mostly flat and they have great plowing infrastructure. Out here where we are, everything's built on a hill, or in this case, a mountain, and driving is a humongous pain in the ass. So we had a feeling that given the storm on Sunday that we likely weren't going to make it back home because it was going to be treacherous to drive on Sunday, not in the Michigan part, but in the Pennsylvania and East Coast part. So we postponed till Monday. And I will tell you this. The drive home yesterday was like the greatest thing ever because the plowing was done. And since a lot of people were either snowed in or just didn't want to go out, the roads were like empty. I drove for like 5 or 6 hours and saw very few cars. It was mostly just passing semis and very few cars on the road. Normally the drive to and from, Maryland to Michigan is a lot more crammed than that.
Well, it's like you said, if you're in a region that is prepared for stuff like this, for this kind of weather, or is used to it, like you were talking about Michigan, then it's generally much less of a hassle. And of course, here in
Texas
the deep South, exactly. So anyway, but it's been cool to see, a couple of days of snow around here since we don't see it. We see it about once a year usually, but
and everybody freaks out.
Yeah, everybody freaks out, and including my relatives, and of course I'm visiting some relatives right now. And it's a major event. You've got to go and stock up on stuff, even stuff that you haven't bought maybe in a year. You might get a craving for it when the ice storm comes, so you better stock up. So of course the shelves are just completely picked over.
That's the same logic as overpacking when you go out of town. You're like, here's this shirt I haven't worn in 5 years, but I might want to wear it while I'm on vacation, and that's never what happens.
And by the way, I want to say to your viewers before we get started that I was thinking about you, especially you and Olivia in Michigan, because as I've told you, my significant other and I, we just finished binging this TV show. Some of you might have seen this, called I Shouldn't Be Alive. And it's really high production value docudrama. Every episode, every week, I don't know where this first aired, but it's on Netflix now, right? Or Prime. Every episode, it is a documentary and also a reenactment of someone who got themselves in a world of hurt out in nature somewhere. So there are people trapped in the snow for days, and they're having to feed, their husband their breast milk and stuff like that. And then there are people who are like trapped, in a desert. And so anyway, we binged that whole thing. And so I was thinking about you and Olivia because I was like, man, this could be a really interesting I Shouldn't Be Alive episode if they get trapped in Michigan snow. But luckily, I'm glad you made it out.
Yes. Guys, hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new here and you have not subscribed here yet already. Please and thank you. Remember, guys, Mary will be back tomorrow. She is live Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The Monday show was not her fault. That was my fault. We were postponed. We were stuck where we were. So she will be back tomorrow, and she will be back on Friday. Thursday, we've got Alex and Brandon in the studio. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm also working on getting some other guests for future Thursdays, which will be a lot of fun as well. So I'm really hoping that we can get more voices and stuff in the chat. We got a 20 here in the chat from Katie. Says, hi, Brett. I saw the new Avatar, Fire and Ash. It was good, but it started at 10 a.m. and ended at 1:47 p.m. I don't think a fourth film is needed.
No. No, for God's sake, somebody do an intervention with James Cameron. We tried, I think. I
We
feel
did.
like, didn't we do that on this show? Intervention?
We tried to have a discussion about, go and do something else. Like, you can do something else other than just Avatar movies. And I will say that directors should be lauded and rewarded for brevity, or at the very least, whoever is in charge of Final Cut for a film should be rewarded for getting you in and out of the theater in less time. Now, I understand the logic that most people, some people say they want the longer movies just because it costs more to go to the theaters these days, but I still believe that a well-made 2 hour and 10-minute movie is worth just as much as like a bloated, overly long 4-hour movie. Like, using length of movie as logic for whether the movie was worth spending the money on makes no sense to me.
Do people really want a 3-hour movie? Unless we're talking about The Godfather, or I mean, I'll enjoy a really good drama or a historical film. Sorry, I'll enjoy that if it's 3 hours at times. But like, really, do we want to see Avatar? I don't think people want to see an Avatar movie that long because it's so redundant. The plot is just so repetitive. That's what I didn't like about the other ones. I felt like it was just like, once you get the feel of, okay, what's going on? Okay, I get the concept. And then it was just kind of like one repetitive thing after another.
Yeah. So we got a bunch of stuff to get into today. Number one, of course, being that yesterday news broke of a viral stunt that Sydney Sweeney had pulled off at the Hollywood sign in Hollywood, California, where she decided to drape her bras over the letters on the Hollywood sign as a way of promoting her new lingerie brand, Siren, which we are going to talk about. And that's a whole thing, given the fact that for Sydney Sweeney, she's all about the viral marketing campaign, which works for her, but who knows whether it's the type of thing that's going to work long term. But I do think in this case, it is going to end up working for her. We are also going to talk about Kanye West, who has apologized for his past comments. So we will talk about that. He has apologized for his past anti-Semitic comments, or we'll talk about it. We are also going to talk about Tom Brady, who is talking about how he has been absolutely wrecked by his divorce, which will be a very interesting thing to get into. I don't have it's not like the dude didn't have the legendary career as is. So we'll have to talk about whether that's been affected, whether his legacy is affected perhaps by that final season. So we'll talk about that. Also, Taylor Swift is absolutely furious about the text messages that have leaked out. So we are going to get into that discussion. Also, Kristen Stewart wants you to know that she feels that women actors have it worse. So we will get into that. We got a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm waiting for Kurtz to get back here. She's I think her internet might have cut out, but we'll wait and see if her internet is reloading here. There we go. Check on it there. Wait and see if we get her back. So, all right, I am going to go ahead then and get us into the Sydney Sweeney topic then. Let's go ahead and get started. So this was the video, guys. I'm going to put it up on screen so you can see exactly what happened. Sydney Sweeney is launching a brand new company. It is a lingerie company called Siren, and she is getting that going by doing this viral marketing campaign. So let's go ahead and watch this video here so you can get an idea of what is going on.
Sick.
She's like, okay, so she's like faking some semblance of fear. I don't think anybody for a second believes that she did not have permission to do this. I, for one, do not believe for a second that she didn't have permission to run this. And she's feigning as if what she's doing here is some sort of like viral moment where she actually somehow broke into the premises and is doing this. Give it up. I want to know who spent all the time. Who was the one who actually sat there and clipped all of the bras together and got them to be able to hang up there? Did she do that herself? My guess is that she's paying an assistant to do so.
Look at Good job. I feel like
Again, so this is the thing. If you go back here and look, guys, so this is what Just Jarrett said. It says, Sydney Sweeney had an interesting idea for some promo, but unfortunately there may be some red tape that has gotten in her way. Apparently, a few days ago, the 28-year-old housemaid star could be seen climbing the iconic Hollywood sign to string together a clothesline of bras. She reportedly did so as a promo shoot for her lingerie line, which she launched with Jeff Bezos as an investor. We did talk about that as well, how she is very good about cozying up to the right people to make sure that she is able to market herself in the way that she needs to. So whether it's dating Scooter Braun, do people actually believe that she's dating Scooter Braun because she likes him, or do they think that he's going to give her inroads to the type of connections she needs within the industry? Or a Jeff Bezos, who she was invited to his wedding to Lauren Sanchez, which is of course also very interesting. I don't know for sure whether it's just her rubbing elbows with the rich and famous because she is also rich and famous, or if she is who we've always known her to be, which is an unbelievably calculating person. Now they're saying that she had a permit to film there at the Hollywood sign, but she did not have permission to touch or climb the sign itself. This was their email. It reads, it has come to our attention that you and the film crew that filmed at the Hollywood sign last night for a production connected with Persuasion Pictures. Please be advised that the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce owns the intellectual property rights to use the image of the Hollywood sign, and neither you nor the production company have sought or received permission to use the images captured for any commercial use. We understand that you received a film permit from Film LA, whose staff assures me that you were notified of the requirements to seek a license from the chamber prior to your shoot. Please contact me to further discuss and work and reach an agreement for your proposed use of it. And in the statement to the TMC, the chair of the Chamber of Commerce said there was no permission granted to do this as is required. Apparently, this could come with a criminal trespass and vandalism charge. I don't know whether that will actually happen. Neither do you, but let's face it. We all know that that is exactly not what is going to happen. Sydney Sweeney is not going to face any vandalism charges. And then this guy here has a really interesting video where he points out that this is all fake. This guy says, we changed the Hollywood sign 4 months ago. Here is some raw footage of him. This is them getting caught while they're doing it.
There it is. There it is. Here, you gotta flip it over. It's backwards. Bring this this way.
Bring it that way. Bring it that way.
Bring yours that way. Bring yours this way.
Bring it that way.
So you can hear the signs right there. They're already at the point where they were there. Within moments of entering the space, they had already lost the battle. They were already getting the very, very loud sirens. We got a 20 here from Dan M. Says, hi, PCC. What's going on, dude? I'm running this solo for right now while we get Kurtz figured out, and she figures out what's going on.
Here, you gotta flip it over. It's backwards. Bring this way.
Bring it that way. Bring it that way.
Bring yours that way. Bring yours this way.
Bring it that way. Go, man, go.
Okay, so this is the other thing. So I decided to look into like what the security measures are like there for the Hollywood sign, and it's actually really crazy. So they have had advanced security there for years and years and years. So they got their first security system back in like 2002. They upgraded it in 2005, and then in 2022 they got more security there: microphones, bullhorn speakers for verbal warnings, live monitoring via webcam, advanced surveillance, so like motion detectors, closed circuit cameras, and it's patrolled by like the LA Parks Department, so there's no way she had to do that. Good one there, Shane. Night vision, 35 plus cameras. I don't think anyone actually buys that Sydney Sweeney is somehow now James Bond, and she got out there, she put on her suit and tux, and she kind of penetrated the perimeter and got in there to do this. No, she is promoting her new brand, which is called Siren. Here it is here. So it says, Sydney Sweeney turns to bras for push-up profits after lacing Hollywood sign with lingerie. It says, move over, Victoria. Sydney Sweeney has a secret to spill. She's revealing her new lingerie line is about to launch just days after the iconic Hollywood sign with brasiers. That was their language. She says, the secret is finally out. Say hello to Siren. This is lingerie for you to wear for you. No explanation, no apology. Siren is coming for you on 128. Sign up now for early access. She is an absolute master right now at marketing and promotion. So I don't think anybody believes for a second that she is going to end up in jail or end up with criminal trespassing charges or vandalism charges. It's just not likely to happen. I don't think anyone actually believes that. So the main thing with Sydney Sweeney is she's not promoting a movie right now, but The Housemaid is actually still doing unbelievably well. The numbers are really, really high for that film. She's got a bunch of other projects in the work, but nobody looks at Sydney Sweeney's box office revenue as like the mark of her character. They've got Euphoria season 3 coming out, so we'll wait and see how that does. But I think for the most part, people don't think of Sydney Sweeney as an actress. I think she wants desperately to be viewed as an actress. I think she wants desperately to be viewed as a serious performer, as somebody of great intellectual depth and rigor when it comes to her artistic performances. But it kind of runs in this weird contrary way to the way her actual persona works outside of the Hollywood movie industry, which is she's fantastic at viral marketing. She is fantastic at getting her brand awareness out there for the things that she's promoting. She's unafraid to approach projects that could be misunderstood or not like respected by the public, and that's why I think a lot of people found her previous like apology and the way she apologized for the jeans ad, which of course nobody actually bought. And yes, I know most people consider that apology to be some type of weird non-apology in which she said, you know, I did what I did and I'm sorry that you felt that way. Whatever that is, nobody actually, most people don't believe that it's going to affect her reputation. And what's weird about it is, and I've said this on the show before, I believe that she has become sort of this, she's like a piece of art in which you can imprint upon it yourself. And what I mean by that is conservatives really, really like her, and they do so because she didn't explain herself or explain why she was doing the things that she was doing, which allowed them to kind of imprint on her how they felt about whether it was woke culture or things like that. And the conservatives tend to be in this path where they do this a lot, where one celebrity says a couple of things that they don't hate, and suddenly they're like, you know what? As I've always said, I like the cut of her jib. And I think that that's a less good way of approaching Hollywood and celebrities, because you should take them for what they can provide and not for what you actually think of them as human beings, because none of us really know the people that we interact with online, or celebrities, the way we know the people in our lives that we actually know and respect. So going to celebrities, taking a few things out of context and saying, you know what, I've always really liked them, it doesn't work for me. But that's just my thoughts on the matter. Hold on, we got some super chats here. Oh, I'm just gonna read this 10 here from Dan. Thank you, man. Says, wanted to send you 20 USD, forgot about the currency conversion. Well, all right there. Well, that works. Kurtz, you back? Nope, she keeps dropping out. There's like something wrong with her internet connection. We'll have to wait and see if we can get it figured out. All right, we're going to move on, guys. We've got more stuff to get into today. Let's talk about Kanye West. So, as you know, Kanye West has been as controversial as it gets when it comes to pop culture these days. I can't say, honestly, that I find his antics all that interesting. At least they never have been to me. I've never found them super interesting. So what can you do about it? But he's gone on his tirades. He's gone on his anti-Semitic tirades that people have criticized over and over again. To most people, it seemed like some sort of manic episode. And I think that that's what it felt like to me. But now we've got this article from Variety. He took out a full page ad, a full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal to apologize for his past anti-Semitic comments. And for that, I can only say it's very clear that he's marketing a new album. So let's go ahead and read through what he has actually said. This is his full-page ad. So we're going to go through it here. All right. So this is what he put. 25 years ago, I was in a car accident that broke my jaw and caused injury to the right frontal lobe of my brain. At that time, the focus was on the visible damage, the fracture, the swelling, the immediate physical trauma, the deeper injury. The one inside my skull went unnoticed. Comprehensive scans were not done, neurological scans were limited, and the possibility of a frontal lobe injury was never raised. It wasn't properly diagnosed until 2023. The medical oversight caused serious damage to my mental health and led to my bipolar type 1 diagnosis. Bipolar comes with its own defense system, denial. When you're manic, you don't think you're sick. You think everyone else is overreacting. You feel like you're seeing the world more clearly than ever, when in reality, you're losing your grip entirely. Once people label you as crazy, you feel as if you cannot contribute anything meaningful to the world. It's easy for people to joke and laugh it off when in fact there is a very serious, debilitating disease you can die from. According to the World Health Organization and Cambridge University, people with bipolar disorder have a life expectancy that is shortened by 10 to 15 years on average, and a 2 to 3 times higher all-cause mortality rate than the general population. This is on par with severe disease, type 1 diabetes, HIV, and cancer, all lethal and fatal if left untreated. The scariest thing about this disorder is how persuasive it is when it tells you you don't need help. It makes you blind, but convinces you you have insight. You feel power, certain, unstoppable. I lost touch with reality. Things got worse with the longer I ignored the problem. I said and did things I deeply regret. Some of the people I love the most, I treated the worst. You endured fear, confusion, humiliation, and the exhaustion of trying to have someone who was, at times, unrecognizable. Looking back, I became detached from my true self. In that fractured state, I gravitated towards the most destructive symbol I could find, the swastika, and I even sold t-shirts bearing it. One of the difficult aspects of having bipolar 1 are the disconnected moments, many of which I still cannot recall. That led to poor judgment and reckless behavior that oftentimes feels like an out-of-body experience. I regret and am deeply mortified by my actions in that state and am committed to accountability, treatment, and meaningful change. It does not excuse what I did, though. I am not a Nazi. I am not an anti-Semite. I love Jewish people. To the black community, which held me down through all of the highs and lows in the darkest times, the black community is unquestionably the foundation of who I am. I am sorry to have let you down. I love you. In early 2025, I fell into a 4-month-long manic episode of psychotic, paranoid, and impulsive behavior that destroyed my life. As the situation became increasingly unsustainable, there were times I didn't want to be here anymore. Having bipolar disorder is notable state of constant mental illness. I did not misread that one. That was on them. Which you guys know, of course, that I am perhaps the worst reader in all of human history. So Colonel Kurtz is, she's going home to try, she says she thinks it's the weather that's causing the problems for her. So she's changing locations. We're going to have to wait and see if that works, but I'm going to continue. To any of the mistakes I'm making while speaking, I don't believe they were me. I believe I have read this one actually better than I have read most things lately. And I was getting into a whole discussion with someone recently about the fact that my reading comprehension, did you guys see the thing about Kai Cenat? In which he was talking, he's doing the streams now where he's reading to improve his reading and his comprehension. That's actually something that I need to start doing, because one of the things is, when you watch good podcasts, their ability to read and be eloquent is, depending on whether it's live or not, it's like they have this ability to go between what they're reading to their point, and they can do so almost, so fluidly you don't even notice it. Whereas like for me, I'm overanalyzing everything I do here. But when it comes to Kanye West, for the most part, he's got a new album coming out called Bully. So he's writing this. Do I believe that he means it? I believe that he's absolutely bipolar. So he may be in a moment of mental clarity right now. Whether that means that he doesn't actually mean what he's saying, I don't know. I do have a question, though. In all of the time that Kanye West was parading around Bianca Censori and everybody was talking about the fact that Kanye was controlling her, are we at a point now where we can have a discussion as to whether she was the one who was perhaps maybe not controlling him, but wasn't doing her job in making sure that, Kurtz, we got you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm literally
plug
in
your
the
laptop
pantry.
in. Plug your laptop in.
Oh, well, I may not be able to do that. Hold on a second. Okay, I can do that. I can do that. Give me one more minute. I'm coming back.
I'm just going to keep going here. So I want to know, guys, how is it possible that Kanye West, who was married to Bianca Censori, through all of this, as we discussed, how is she able to be with him and behaving? Because we need to understand why she gets a pass. Why is it that he was controlling her, but he is the one who is clearly dealing with some form of mental illness, and it's her job as his wife to be able to help him through and shepherd him through those hard times and help him fix himself. You good there? You good there? Waiting to hear back. There we go.
All right, y'all. I'm trying it from my neighbor's pantry.
Okay,
so that's where we're at. But let's go. This is where the strongest Wi-Fi signal is. Okay, says, so go ahead, go for it.
If we lose it, we'll just keep going. So I was asking the question because we're on Kanye now.
Okay.
All last year, right? Kanye was this like 2 years ago when Bianca Censori was going through all of the stuff with the crazy outfits, and people were wondering whether he was controlling her. If we're to take Kanye at his word now, and that he's going through some form of, he was going through a bipolar episode, is she not responsible as his wife to help him through that and try to get him away from it? It's not always the guy's fault. It's not always the woman's fault. But if you're married, you have a responsibility to one another. And it makes me wonder if perhaps she should have played more of a role in kind of trying to get him to shut up last year, whenever that was that he was making these problems.
I mean, maybe normally I would agree with you, except I don't know how any woman deals with that man. I mean, my God, I just seeing the way that, I'm sure you saw that video of him screaming at Kris Jenner. And I don't know who was right or wrong in that dispute. I think it was probably Kanye was in the wrong there. But just the way he was going off on his mother-in-law, I don't think that there is any way to deal with that man. And so I think that if you're going to be married to him, in a relationship with him, you've just got to kind of take the attitude that you are along for the ride, and I guess for the money and the exposure or whatever you're dealing with him for. That's my opinion. And also, I don't know if y'all have covered this, but I don't trust Kanye's pronouncements anymore. He has done this repeatedly. This is like the fifth or sixth time he's apologized to the Jewish community. Isn't
I remember,
it? So,
remember the one where he's like, "I watched 21 Jump Street and I'm not anti-Semitic anymore."
Right. Exactly. So I don't trust him, and honestly, I never took him seriously one way or the other. I don't look to Kanye as my guide as to how to feel about anything, quite frankly.
I'm guessing most people don't. Well, here's the thing. Because I'm one of those people that when these types of situations happen and people are saying he's definitely having a bipolar episode, maybe that's true, but we also live in an age where everyone kind of has to be a shock jock if they want to get some type of, if they want to get some traction going with their career. Now, Kanye doesn't need that. That was actually the point he makes in one of these articles. So basically people came to him. They said, "You've got a new album coming out on Friday. It's called Bully. Is it possible that you're just doing this because you've got a new album coming out?" He said, "It's my understanding that I was in the top 10 most listened to artists overall in the US on Spotify in 2025, and last week and most days as well. My upcoming album, Bully, is currently one of the most anticipated pre-saves of any album on Spotify too. My 2007 album, Graduation," that's my personal favorite of his work, but that's just me, "was the most listened to and streamed hip-hop album of 2025 in the year." So in the year 2025, his 2007 album was the most streamed of any hip-hop album. He's basically making the point, I don't need to apologize. I don't need the help selling my album. And that's supposed to, I guess, make you more trusting of his apology.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Kanye's head. Did you cover the story about him the dentist and his dentist, and how Kanye is supposedly on nitrous oxide
Yeah.
all the time anyway
Yeah.
and stuff. So, and look, everybody's got their substance of choice, or used to, or whatever. But
Yes, used to.
Yes, used to. I know. I thought of you there, putting that in there. But everybody's, got their struggles. I'm not down on him for that. But like, I think this guy is just not in the clearest state of mind, quite frankly. And so is he doing this because he really feels bad, or he's doing it to sell his album or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't know. Somebody just opened the door to the pantry.
They're just like, why? Have you ever, okay, so what was it? Me and you? No, it was me and Alex that were talking about Wayne's World last week, because she hadn't seen it in years. And there's that scene in Wayne's World where they ask Wayne, like, what are you gonna do? And he goes and he opens the door, and there's the guy with the flamethrower and the ninjas, and they're like, Garth's like, what are you gonna do with these guys? He's like, oh, nothing really. I've just always wanted to open the door to a room of a bunch of men being trained like they're in a James Bond movie. Which, that
was a great movie.
I can't deny. I would like to do that as well. I'm going to finish up on his statement here. So I'll go back here. He says, to the black community who has held me down through all the highs and lows and the darkest of times, the black community is unquestionably the foundation of who I am. I am so sorry to have let you down. I love us. In early 2025, I fell into a 4-month-long manic episode of psychotic, paranoid, and impulsive behavior that destroyed my life. As the situation became increasingly unsustainable, there were times I didn't want to be here anymore. Having bipolar disorder is a notable state of constant mental illness. When you go into a manic episode, you are ill at that point. When you are not in an episode, you are completely normal, and that's when the wreckage from the illness hits hardest. Hitting rock bottom a few months ago, my wife encouraged me to finally get help. That's why I brought up Bianca. I'm like, I'm really hoping that now isn't the moment where she's just like, you know what, now you can finally get some help. But I did see some memes that were getting posted where it's the Green Goblin talking to Norman Osborn, telling him to do things. They're like, Ye telling Kanye to say anti-Semitic things. And so the thing is like, some will give him the benefit of the doubt. Some people aren't going to give any celebrity the benefit of the doubt when there's even a hint, like a semblance of a possibility that he could be using this for monetary gain.
Right. I agree. And again, for me, it's just the fact that we've seen so many wild vacillations. And I don't even care anymore. If I ever did, which I really did. Well, Kanye has been saying outrageous stuff for decades, before some of your viewers were even born. So
no, I think so. I've looked at our demographics. Our audience is firmly closer to my age. Okay.
Would your audience be interested in some probiotics?
Yes,
from the
they would.
Cabinet?
They absolutely would. You know what we should start doing? Unfortunately, it's like, because like this whole today started with like a Wi-Fi issue. You should just do the show from weird places every week. Every Tuesday, you should be somewhere new to do. Well,
I'm actually like seeing the benefits of the pantry, to be honest with you. I mean, the sound is pretty, it's actually pretty contained in here and stuff. I might just need to start using the pantry, honestly.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Hey, I do want to ask you though, before we move on to something else, did you talk about Sydney Sweeney's boobs maybe being fake?
Okay, so so here's the thing. I talked about Sydney Sweeney's viral marketing stunt for her new brand Siren, and it, like all millennials, it's spelled very annoyingly SYRN. I thought it was CERN at first. I'm like, is this a psyop? Did she spell CERN in a weird way because she's part of the group that switched on the Large Hadron Collider in 2016, which put us into this timeline that we're in now? Maybe that's what it was, but no, it's her new lingerie brand, which they're now putting out these statements that she might face repercussions, that she could go to jail for trespassing, which I don't think anybody on planet Earth actually believes is going to happen. But you pointed out something else, which is that there is some speculation that those things on her chest are not real.
Yeah, correct? So here's the thing, like, I almost don't want to bring this up, or didn't want to bring it up, partly because you always get, when you do this, you always get accused, or I always get accused of being a jealous female, and I cannot say that maybe unconsciously, semi-consciously, there is a little bit of envy going on. But that having been said, I get so annoyed when celebrities have plastic surgery and they don't own up to it. As you know, I think that plastic surgery is great for those, who want to do it,
who can afford it,
et cetera. If I'm very open about the fact that if I had the money, I would totally be getting stuff like that done. Not breast implants, because my mom had she had a bad experience that she and I've talked about before. Actually, a certain percentage of women, by the way, do get severe autoimmune reactions to breast implants. So I actually wouldn't get implants, but I would definitely get a nose job and things like that, right? Well, here's the deal. I hate it when celebrities get stuff and they don't own up to it. And the reason I hate that is because it does set expectations for normal people that are just wildly out of proportion to reality. And so with Sydney Sweeney, what she embodies is the fantasy that you can have a super tiny trim figure everywhere else, but have massive boobs that you just, and this just almost never happens in real life.
Well,
I guess
here's this doc. you sent me this video of this doctor, so I'm not going to screen share, but people can listen to this. Let's
so
play
this
it
basically, this plastic surgeon, is saying that she shows the telltale signs of having breast implants. And I watched her in Euphoria and the other day, and I was like, wow, her boobs are a lot smaller in Euphoria than they are in The Housemaid, because I saw The Housemaid and her boobs are giant in that. So I suspect plastic surgery. Go ahead.
Let's watch the video.
Sweeney's all in the news, and she's in the news because she's saying she's had no plastic surgery done, and I'm here to tell you that ain't true. So let's delve into it. All right, and let's take a look right here. So anytime that we see this,
there's like a whole like secondary cottage industry now for people who are this type of professional who get to make these. Like I remember, like my favorite is the guy who's like he's like a celebrity dentist who does videos about celebrity veneers. Like there's I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but earlier there was did you see the thing about the guy who climbed the top of the building, and it was on Netflix, and it was a really big deal. I love the fact that they're like what did you like, did you have like a message for doing this? He's like, yeah, not really. But the point I was making was they pointed out that this guy made $500,000 to do this, and they're like, that doesn't seem like a whole lot of money for the risk that he took. And I was like, imagine being the company that had to insure this special, like this whole thing. The cost must have been astronomical. And I pointed out, I said, okay, he made $500,000. And could he have asked for more? Well, he could have certainly hired maybe a better agent or a better lawyer to negotiate a better contract. Maybe they walk away, maybe they don't. But in today's day and age, the way they make their money is they use like whatever exposure they have from a company like Netflix to kind of branch out and then get brand deals. And somebody, like a couple of people in the chat were like, he should have made more from that. I'm like, that's just not the way the world works. Right. What he needs to do is make videos like this, where he's like, he could go and make videos where he's criticizing or critiquing other people who free climb buildings or things like that. Like there's infinite ways you can make money. If this guy's a plastic surgeon, he's probably making good money already, but no, he's also got to have his side hustle as well. So let's listen.
You can see the edges that I've outlined in white right there. That, under no circumstance, is ever a natural breast. It's an implant. It's just pure and simple. Let's take another look. All right, how about all this here, or maybe right here or here? Anytime that, look at this, we can make a line and we can draw that edge out. You can see the edge. You literally can see it. That is an implant shadow. Those are implants, period. No way around it. Now, I'm not here to hate on Sydney Sweeney. I have actually no opinion on her one way or the other. Outside the fact that I just don't understand why people have plastic surgery and say that they don't have plastic surgery. The last thing I'd say is, to me, that looks like a surgically created nose. It just looks too pyramidal to be real. Again, if you've had it, cool. If you don't want to talk about it, don't talk about it. But don't say that you haven't had it. That's not true.
All right. Thoughts?
Yeah, so again, when I saw that her boobs had gotten bigger from The Housemaid, when she was in The Housemaid, than when she was in Euphoria years ago, then to me that was a tip off right there. I mean, granted, her boobs in Euphoria, they were nice size, but they've gotten bigger. And so, yeah, I agree with this guy. The picture that he showed at the beginning of her in the swimsuit, to me, that is a telltale picture there, because you see that really hard, as he was talking about, that really hard outline of the upper part of the implant. And you often, that shows up a lot in bikini photos, particularly if the person is using some kind of push-up device as well on top of it, or it's just tightly bound, you can see that implant. And so, like I was saying, my only irritation is that, once again, it sets the bar high for normal people, regular people, because there's this expectation that women can be really, really thin and trim everywhere, and then just have a giant chest, and that just almost never happens. So I wish that Sydney Sweeney would cop to it, would say, yeah, I got breast implants. She even supposedly took a lie detector test. Did you see this?
Yes, that's where I thought you were getting this from. Where she,
and so I just want to say,
does anybody believe that those lie detector tests are real? Nobody buys that.
Yes, please. Everyone should understand. Anytime a celebrity, this happened with Gene Simmons and his wife too. You know, Gene Simmons is notorious cheater, and so they did, and he was having marriage problems with Shannon Tweed, his former, Playboy bunny wife, and she had him take a lie detector test, and the lie detector tests, those are notoriously unreliable, particularly when you're dealing with showbiz, where we're not even sure if this is like a legit thing that we're seeing. And so Gene Simmons claimed that he had only ever made love to one woman in his life, or to his wife, and he passed the lie detector test. Give me a break. Sydney Sweeney should just say either none of your business, or ignore the question, or say, yeah, I got implants. But to say no, and because she knows that's not right. So that's all I got to say about that.
Do you think it's possible that she could just later admit to it and say, but I got them done after I said that, and then there's just no way to prove her right or wrong?
I mean, she could say that, I guess, but like, I think when she's been asked about that pretty recently, right, and has denied it. So it's pretty well after the fact.
But like, what would have been the I guess because it's such a focus of conversation for her. Yeah. That saying they're fake would actually hurt her brand, whereas like so much of the Kardashians, or not all of them, but so much of the main Kardashians are known to be faked that it's all kind of one package, whereas Sydney Sweeney is known for like one thing. So there was a thing going around.
She's known too. You hit the nail on the head about it being about why she can't come clean, because that is what she's known for, and also it's the naturalness that she's known for too. I mean, everyone is not amazed at Sydney Sweeney's boobs because they're just great boobs. They're amazed because everybody thinks that they're natural, and it's like, wow, this woman was just endowed with this really cute tiny figure everywhere else, and then she's got this amazing rack. That's the issue. Yeah. So
the funny thing is like there's some memes that were going around. By the way, guys, I put up a poll. I switched the poll, and I'm sorry, but I switched the poll, ladies and gentlemen. Originally, I asked everybody, how did you do in the snowstorm? Was there snow where you lived? Did they oversell it, or did you get wrecked by the snow? Only 29% said they got wrecked by the snow. 39% said there was no snow at all where they lived, and then 32% said that they oversold it. But I switched the poll up, ladies and gentlemen, and I asked you a very simple question. I said, Sydney Sweeney, are they real? Are they real or are they fake? So your options are they are real or those things are not real. And right now, 68% of them are saying that they believe they're real. But the point I was making was...
Suckers.
There was... 68% of them are saying that they're real. Oh, yes, you disagree with that. Yes. You think they're... Okay.
Yes.
So there was some memes going around where it was putting pictures of Sydney Sweeney next to Megan Fox. And they were comparing the two of like Megan Fox in her prime being like Transformers era Megan Fox versus Sydney Sweeney now. And they said they were looking at, it was like them, both of their faces, and all of the responses were like, bold of you to assume that I was looking at Sydney Sweeney's face. And that's kind of her brand. I did see, look, there are plenty of people. How do you feel about this take that we kind of have on here, which is that Sydney Sweeney has like her ability to not explain herself when she goes viral leads to conservatives imprinting on her, and she becomes like this avatar for whatever their thoughts are on wokeness, and kind of conversely on the other side of the aisle she becomes everything bad to the liberals. Like to the leftists, she's evil because she didn't explain her gene ad. So both sides, due to lack of explanation from her, lead to her being whatever they want them to, whatever she wants them to be.
Right. She becomes kind of a cipher in a way for that. Yeah, I think both sides would be disappointed to know probably how little this woman actually thinks about politics or cares about politics. I think that this, based on what I've read, interviews with her and so forth, I think this woman thinks about, and I don't even mean this in a negative way, but I think she thinks about success and money And that's about it right now. And, you know, she talked in an interview that I read with her, this was a while back, about how her family struggled financially so much. And her parents basically went into bankruptcy to try to get her into the industry. Like, they moved to LA, and I mean, basically it seems like Sydney Sweeney became like the main project of her family and their ticket out of financial difficulty and stuff. And what came through in that interview with her that I read, she kept talking about financial stuff and how wonderful it was when she finally started making some money, and she's gotten to see how the other half lives, and like, wow, this is amazing and all that. And I don't mean this in a negative, way.
It's not a bad. I think,
but I'm just saying that I think there's a reason she's dating Scooter Braun. I mean,
yes,
that
was the point I said. I said she is very tactical in her decision.
Yes.
So the point I made less eloquently earlier when I was trying to get my thoughts situated was that, so she gets invited to Jeff Bezos's wedding, right? She knows all of the right people she needs to get involved with to advance her career. And that's not a bad thing, right? Now, you could say that dating Scooter Braun for his connections is bad, but unless she admits that, we can't, you know, she's got plausible...
Well, his money. He's worth hundreds of millions.
But she's got plausible deniability there, right? She can be like, oh, he just seemed like an interesting guy. He just so happens to also have access to a media empire, all of those things. But that's not like, the dating somebody for their money and connections is a bad thing. But getting involved with Jeff Bezos, which, by the way, he is also the financier on her lingerie line. So...
Right.
That going to that wedding was a business expense she can write off because it got her in connection with the right people, and she's just making all the right moves for her career. But I think these days we're so used to celebrities having to pretend to care about like Billie Eilish talking about the evils of capitalism before launching whatever her most recent product is, and people can smell how disingenuous that is. So when Sydney Sweeney unashamedly promotes her brands with her viral marketing campaigns, everyone's like, you know what? Good. Fine. Like, that's fine. As long as you're not pretending to be something you're not.
Right. I have no problem whatsoever anyway with Sydney Sweeney. Even look at the plastic surgery thing, everybody lies about that too. So like, I'm not actually over here stewing about it, but I do agree with you, Brett. I think she's very tactical. I think she's hyper success, career oriented. I think that she's hyper financially driven. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of these things. And I don't think that she probably cares much about politics, to be honest with you. So when we see her in these interviews, kind of giving a bit of a blank look and an arched eyebrow and not saying anything, I think she probably doesn't have much that she really wants to say on that account. Give me 10 seconds to do something. I'll be right back.
All right. The funny thing about it is, for Sydney Sweeney, is I don't think she needs to, I don't think she ever needed to be more than just the brand that she is, which is very, very good. I would like to see her actually focus less on acting and more on producing and more on marketing the brands that she does. Because right now, the average Hollywood actor is almost indistinguishable from the average influencer, meaning that when they go and make movies now, and I've talked about this on the channel before, so you guys can let me know if you remember what I'm talking about. So actors, I don't remember which of the Fanning sisters it was, whether it was Dakota Fanning or Elle Fanning, but one of them, somebody can put it in the chat if they remember which one it was, basically saying that they wanted to at some point delete their social media, and then they were basically advised by directors, writers, and agents. They said, you can't do that because you're not going to get hired for specific projects if you are not able to show the producer of a film that you have this many followers on social media, because they're using those followers as a way of marketing the next big movie that they're making. And that is depressing as it is, because now, and this is a good point to mention here before we move on. Now we have like stunt casting, because why the hell is Travis Scott in the Odyssey? Does anybody know?
Travis Scott is in the Odyssey?
Yes, he is. Did you see this?
No.
He's got a clip in the Odyssey. Now, the only thing that I can think of is that Christopher Nolan is a secret wrestling fanatic, and he saw Travis Scott injure Cody Rhodes at Elimination Chamber last year, and he was like, you know what? I'm going to put him in a Greek epic.
Oh, you're talking about Travis Scott, like
the rapper.
Oh, the rapper?
The rapper.
I didn't even know he was in a fight with someone. What?
Oh, he was in a wrestling angle where he accidentally hurt Cody Rhodes during like a botched wrestling segment, and now he's going to be in the Odyssey, and of course people made it racial about the complaint. I said, look, I know so little about the Odyssey that I couldn't tell you the race of every person in that book, whatever. Like if there was black Greeks in that movie, in that book, I have no idea. I do know, however, that Christopher Nolan only makes so many movies, and that means that the amount of people who are vying for a role in a Christopher Nolan movie is plentiful, and you have access to the best talent in the entire world. What the hell are you doing putting Travis Scott in the promotional material? It makes no sense. Wrestling fans are still pissed about his stuff in there, so it's weird. It's weird.
That's shocking to me. I did not have that on my bingo card. That's for sure.
All right. So what you should do then? You should tell everybody what's going on with Tom Brady.
Oh, well, Tom Brady recently was quoted as saying, this was an interview or podcast or something, that in essence, the divorce, it really took a toll on him. And even though, he didn't speak out at the time and people didn't know what he was going through, that it was a rough time and it took its toll. And this kind of, to me, in a way, it gets into this larger conversation about Tom and Gisele's marriage and what happened there, what went wrong there. Now, I know there's some Gisele haters who think that she just flat out cheated on him. She met another guy who was able to give her the adoration that her egotism demanded. And so she ditched Tom Brady and ditched their lives with their kids and got a new guy. And so it's a very cold way of looking at Gisele. Then there are the Tom Brady haters who say, oh, this man cared more about football than his family. And she gave him time and time again an opportunity to quit. But
it was like the one last season, right? It's like because he went back for one last season.
Well,
they finish off their 13-year marriage.
Well, that's the thing, though, is I think apparently he had been telling Gisele for a while that this season was going to be the last or whatever. So, look, I don't know. I kind of split it down the middle, and I think this is what happened, is that they had grown apart. She had gotten tired of playing second fiddle to football, and then she did meet this guy who was her instructor, her jiu-jitsu instructor, and her kids' jiu-jitsu instructor. And so I think both of these things happened. And look, this happens at times, and it's not ideal, but it does. I will say that I talked about this the other day on Ethan Ralph's show. We were talking about Josh Allen crying. Did you see him crying after he lost that game, the Bills?
Yes.
So we were talking about the fact that it seems like a lot of these guys, whenever they fall in love and they get married and they're doing really well romantically, that the football seems to suffer. And so we were talking about Josh Allen, how he just married Haley Steinfeld.
They said that's true of like Travis Kelce with Taylor Swift. Like
that's what I was going to say.
So the thing about that is that I find really funny. It's actually kind of an old trope in like sports movies and stuff like that. The guy gets some level of who remembers. I'm gonna give a hot take right now. I prefer Major League 2 to Major League 1. With Charlie Sheen, the baseball movie. And in Major League 2, Willie Mays Hayes comes back from break. He's in a movie now with Jesse Ventura, Black Hammer and White Lightning. I'm not kidding you. That's the characters. And he comes in with a limo. He's got an entourage of people. He's suddenly trying to hit home runs rather than just get on base. He's not focused on the sport itself. And the same is true of Vaughn's character, who has now become a celebrity. And he's dating his publicist and all of this stuff. And they get distracted. Right? That they're not taking their job seriously anymore because their romantic inclinations on top of other things are getting in the way. Now, I don't know if that's true for Josh Allen. There was a big thing going on where they were like, some of the football blogs were basically saying like, Haley Steinfeld will not be attending his game because she has to go basically be an announcer at the Oscars or whatever it was. It was the Golden Globes, I think.
Golden Globes. Yes,
and then like the feminists like responded and were like, Josh Allen will not be attending Haley Steinfeld's presentation at the Golden Globes because he's got a football game, right? But that's what happens when celebrities date each other.
Right.
So the question is, would Tom Brady 13 years in the NFL, or I'm sorry, 13 years of marriage, not 13 years in the NFL. Would that last season have mattered if he had married somebody who was not also famous and made their own money?
Yeah, I don't know. I just remember seeing that documentary about them that came out several years, maybe it was 5 years before they divorced, before she left him. And even on that documentary, she was complaining about the fact, look, we have all this money, you have all this success, you're the GOAT, greatest of all time, Super Bowls, etc. When does the point come when the risk that you're taking to yourself physically is not worth it anymore, especially what you might give up with your children? You've got these years that your children and your wife that are fleeting. You can't get that back. I'm not saying I agree with her, but I'm saying that it was very clear in that documentary, in that interview, that this was from years before she split with him, that she had enough. And I think what really was the last straw for her, these commenting on these people that I don't know, but what may have been the last straw is when he retired. You remember this? He retired, and then he took it back several weeks later. And I really and then when she met Joaquin Valente that spring as her kids jiu-jitsu instructor,
it's such a cliche. I'm sorry.
It is.
At least he wasn't a karate instructor. If he was a karate instructor, it would have been even more of a cliche.
Oh, because I'm thinking about Elvis too. Yeah. That's who Priscilla not left Elvis for, but that's the guy that she cheated on Elvis with after he had cheated on her many, many times.
Look,
but,
I do think I don't like the idea of her telling him that, you've got so much to live for. When you have to think about how long it takes somebody to get to that level, the amount of work that you put into it to become a professional athlete, on top of just being, a lot of times it's a mixture of both unbelievable work ethic and gift, and a natural gift for whatever you're doing. And you put years and years and years of work into this. There are people who start bands that are never successful and they can't quit, right? There's something about it. They still perform. They've never made a living off of it, but it's what they love. For a pro athlete to be asked to do that, I understand the inclination, because what she's doing is, if you want to give the most charitable definition, which not everybody will, is that she's thinking of her family first. It's not about getting him to stop because she asked to it. It's because she's afraid that it might leave him with more concussions or whatever. But when something like that is so ingrained in you, it's who you are. You are not oftentimes going to just walk away, even if it seems like the same thing to do. And for him, it oftentimes would be. He's not somebody who's struggling to make money, right? Like he doesn't need to keep going because he needs to make money to retire. He went straight into commentating after football, right? He's made his money, though. I do think he got caught up in one of those crypto, into the Sam Bankman-Fried stuff, I think. But the point is it's so important to who you are that your best instincts aren't always going to win out in those cases. And I don't think that makes him wrong.
I agree with you. And I did a video on this actually, years ago, after he went back on that retirement and people were on his case about it. And I actually supported him. And I said that, that as someone who does not have children, by choice, I totally believe that there are many avenues to fulfillment in life, and not everyone thinks that domesticity, or that being totally involved in the domestic sphere, is for them. But I will say that in that documentary, Giselle mentioned that she had never met anyone who loved anything the way that Tom Brady loves football. And if you know that going into a relationship with someone, it's pretty obvious, should have been pretty obvious from the beginning that this man, it was going to be almost impossible to tear him away from the football. And so, I think on both sides, you do grow apart, as cliche it is, you do grow apart at times in a relationship. And the old school attitude was that you stay together for the kids and for the family unit. Maybe that was right. Maybe it was wrong. I don't know. But these days, celebrities, they have too many options. She's got that hot jiu-jitsu instructor she's seeing every day, and he wants to be involved with her family, right? And he's spending hours with the kids. It's not just about her. I'm sure that it was a big turn on to see this dude engaged every day with her children, teaching them and mentoring them and stuff. And she's wondering, why isn't my own husband here doing the equivalent of it? And, these athletes, it is a 24-hour, 7-day a week, 365 day a year thing. It's not just an off, especially if you're a GOAT, right? Like Tom Brady, it's not just off season. So it is a big commitment, and it's possible that Tom Brady was just really thinking and talking about football nonstop, and it just drove her nuts.
Look, I'm never going to hold it against somebody who reached the level that they reached. Right. Because of the hard work, like that is the sacrifice. There's a reason why the concept of WAGs, the wives and girlfriend stuff, is true, right?
Right.
Because how many of them make poor choices with who they end up with because they need to understand that, look, if you want to date a pro athlete or marry a pro athlete, especially one if you want to find the rare ones that are actually loyal and don't use their celebrity to then play the field, as oftentimes you hear does, is that it is an unbelievable commitment that not just from me, but we are now a family unit, and you need to be willing to commit to that. And that means, I mean, the same is true of somebody who does, work that's a lot less glamorous. If you're the wife of a long haul trucker, he's working to provide for your family, and that's an unbelievable sacrifice from all parties involved because he's going to be on the road along, a great amount of the time. And and that comes with a lot less upside than somebody like a Tom Brady.
Right, exactly. A lot less. And look, it's possible, Giselle, she could just be a hyper demanding shrew, but we don't know about these people. But yeah, so Tom though, I do think it must have been hard for him also, the fact that after his family or after his wife leaves him, then the football thing does fall apart. And of course, I know he's doing broadcasting now, but I'm sure it has been tough for him, really tough. So I wish him well.
All right, let's move on. Let's do cue to the day, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody likes to brag about their pets. By the way, Kurtz, I'm like my eyes are like I'm watching your Wi-Fi signal like a hawk. Like a hawk.
How's it been? Has it been since I moved to the pantry?
It's better right this second, but it flits between green to orange to yellow, and then I start to panic. So we're gonna work through it here. If I have to ramble on my own incoherently again.
Has my image or has my audio been weird at all? Or
no, it's been fine. I just knock on wood.
We should be okay now that it's working in the pantry. So we'll see.
we'll have to wait and see. So let's go ahead. I will keep my eye on it, and if it gets if it cuts out, maybe we'll just do super chats, and then if it causes more problems down the line. We were running behind today with the scheduling and everything.
Speaking of the Nirvana shirt that I was showing you earlier, for people tuning in late, it's a joke. It's Hanson, but it says Nirvana. But Kurt Cobain, there's an anecdote about him that I always thought was interesting, which is that at the end of his life, he had a really big mansion in Seattle. Wealthy rock star. And apparently he spent most of his time in the pantry because he felt almost mildly agoraphobic, or even in his own home, like the space was just too big. So apparently he spent most of his time in the pantry.
I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah. All right, here we go. Cue to the day. This one's from Jeremy Shoemake. Says, Nancy, stand up. Nancy is very nice. I like
cute.
It. That's a very cute kitty. And then let's do one more because we've got a lot to get through here. This one from Cookie Don might be the cutest out of all of them, though.
Aww.
That is a very cute cat. All right. Guys, we are almost to a crisis party. Again, we're getting the crisis meter fixed. I have kept an eye on it. I will make sure to trigger the crisis meter, trigger the crisis party when we get there. So just don't worry about that. All right, Kurtz, tell us what is going on with Taylor Swift and why she is so angry about the leak of these text messages.
Well, we talked about this last time I was on, and the situation has only gotten worse for Taylor in the sense that she is getting I'm not kidding, the worst PR, and it's all organic, by the way. It's just coming from social media.
Yeah.
A lot of Justin Baldoni supporters like myself and other people are finally discovering the woman behind the curtain, so to speak. So as you know, there were a number of texts between Blake Lively and Taylor Swift that were just recently released as a part of the discovery in the Justin Baldoni Blake Lively trial. So Blake Lively is still suing Justin Baldoni. That has not been dismissed. And as a part of discovery process, as you know, at times evidence comes out and is made available to the public. So what has come out have been a number of leaks where Taylor Swift comes across as, yes, a mean girl, a conniving, manipulative person. And she's calling Justin Baldoni a bitch in one of the texts. Yeah, apparently Justin Baldoni did an interview where he was talking about some mental health struggles that he had at one point, and she was belittling him in this text, saying this bitch is getting out his little violin. It also shows the extent to which Taylor believed that she and Blake Lively were master manipulators. She compares them to the Roman Empire, I guess Roman emperors, master manipulators in this power play against Justin Baldoni. So they were trying, as you know, they were trying to get Baldoni and the studio to bend to Blake Lively's will and allow her to use her cut of the movie as the film. In other words, you had one cut of the movie that Justin Baldoni, the director, and his editors, and pretty much everyone else, including test audiences, by the way, Sony test audiences, approved of. And then you had Blake Lively with her own self-edited cut of the film that she was basically harassing and pressuring Sony and Justin Baldoni into releasing as the official cut of the film. So what happened was basically she brought in Taylor Swift as her advocate. Taylor also had a song in the trailer, was doing some music for the film, and got Taylor Swift to bully Justin Baldoni into giving Blake Lively editing rights, final cut rights on the film.
Is part of this because, like, look, when we made our last video, it was like Taylor Swift Mean Girl exposed, which I think the difference is like people in the know, people who follow perhaps pop music or just Taylor Swift in general, but aren't super fans of her, have known for years that she has that image behind the scenes. I remember we did a thumbnail. We did a video about Taylor Swift where she like made Lana Del Rey come up on stage with her during like her winning an award, and it just seemed like her bragging about beating her for the award. And people were like, and some people were like, look, she's always been like this. Other people were like, you're being unfair. But perhaps the leak of these text messages is the most blatant evidence to normies of what it's like to be a cutthroat businesswoman behind the scenes. And I imagine that to work at the level that Taylor Swift works at, she probably does view, any emotion as weakness. I have to imagine.
I mean, yeah, maybe so. But I think that we know of a number of other people who have achieved great success and yet don't have these attitudes. And what's really been an eye opener for me is to now go back and look at Taylor Swift's music and her lyrics and things that she has said in interviews before, and to see what I think is a real misandry on her part. I think she has a big problem with men. One of the things that I posted on my page and on my channel is a reel of her biggest feminist moments. And it's something that a fan put together, but it's one interview after another where she's complaining about how oppressed she is as a woman and how women have to be silent because basically men just take up all the space in the room and all the space in the conversation, and men will gaslight you.
Yes, I'm sure that when she enters the room, it's the nearest man that gets all the attention. I'm sure.
Exactly. And so it's, if you watch this, and then I don't know if you know this or not, Brett, but she at her concerts sometimes she will provoke her audience of mostly women into screaming, chanting, "Fuck the patriarchy" over and over. And so I started looking at some of the lyrics in her songs, and she treats her exes, I think, really terribly in terms of the way that she smears them in her songs and then creates days and weeks of negative media coverage for them. I'll give you the two most recent examples. Joe Alwyn, the British actor that she was in a multi-year relationship with, like 6 years or something, moved in together and lived in London, all that, right? Well, he has, before, after, during their relationship, he has never said an unkind word about her. He values his privacy above all else, and he has reiterated that since the breakup. Same thing with Matt Healy, who I know he has a rough reputation, the 1975 frontman that she dated for a hot minute. I know he has kind of a rough reputation, I think undeserved, but he's never said anything bad about her either. And what does she do? She releases on her recent album, or the album before last, Tortured Poets Department, songs about these guys where she smears them. And so she outs Matt Healy for, apparently, according to her, trying to cop some painkillers from a friend of a friend. Now, he's supposed to be sober, at least in terms of opioids and prescription drugs. She outs him for that, belittles him, makes fun of him, and said, the friend ghosted you for trying to get pills. And then Joe Alwyn in So Long London, her song So Long London, she complains about what a drag it was to deal with his clinical depression. She talks about how
it's such a drag. It's such a bummer to be around you with your depression.
Exactly. She does.
So basically, if you're just a regular person, you can say that, but if you're in a relationship with them, you should not lament. You should care enough to want to help.
Well, how about let's just not put it in a song that's going to be blasted to millions and millions of people. And she talks about what a drag he was, and I could only take the sadness for so long. Oh, the tragedy. So long, London, you'll find someone, in a really dismissive way. And she's like, oh, I finally got the color back in my cheeks. Here's my issue. It's not, I'm not saying she's Hitler, but you've got a long-standing pattern of her belittling her exes, smearing them, and in these most recent cases, bringing out the darkest, perhaps most shameful aspects of their personality. Not that they should be ashamed, but typically how people view this stuff, especially men. Most men do not want people to think that they sit around the house all day being sad and crying. So, or in the case of a recovering addict, they don't want their relapses blasted out to the entire world to know. And so to me, this is despicable, shameful behavior. So you pair that with what she has said in interviews before about male-dominated society and patriarchy and putting up with men. Pair that with what she said in her text behind the scenes about Baldoni and calling him a bitch and trying to collude with Blake Lively to tear this guy apart. And I think she has a real problem with men. I don't think she's a good person, a nice person. And so that, for the first time, that kind of PR is it's getting out, and it's making an impression, and it's getting a lot of views. I mean, my posts on this have gotten hundreds of thousands of views on Twitter. And I think that is what's driving her nuts. So apparently she's furious behind the scenes. She's upset. She feels violated. These texts are out.
She can't control the narrative. And when you can't control the narrative, it's like, and her industry, that's very, very important, right? To be able to control where the flow of information goes, whether it's the ability to kill a story before it happens, change the focus of a story once something bad comes out. And the funny thing is, she can do that at will because of the size of her platform. So anytime any bad news comes out about her, she can immediately drop something, whether it's a new like special edition album or some announcement that needs to be made. She can change the front page of her search results in an instant without even having to worry about it. And the other weird thing is, like, she is at the head of a very, very female dominated specific industry, meaning that the pop music scene is largely female dominated these days. When you think about the female musicians, in a lot of ways in the pop sphere, because of stan culture and things like that, that is far more female inclined than male.
Right.
Like there are no new heterosexual Justin Biebers in that industry that are going to reach that level. Do you know what I mean? Like we talk about this all the time. Like they all end up being either gay, or it ends up being queer baiting, or it's something to appeal to the girls and the gays, because that's the way stan culture works. Also, I've made the comment multiple times that every time an actor speaks out about politics, I said they don't want to be actors, they want to be pop stars, because actors get punished somewhat for speaking out about politics, because a lot of times most of the movies that are coming out these days, they're what they call 4-quadrant pictures, meaning they're trying to appeal to men and women, young and old. Whereas pop music, it's very sectored off. So they can make pop music, and she can speak specifically to liberal white women and make billions of dollars. Whereas movies, it's not the same thing.
Well, and it's been, you mentioned she can speak to her audience of liberal white women, and I know that her audience is varied, and there are a lot of conservatives who like her too, and maybe a few men too.
My wife is a huge Taylor Swift fan.
Sure. So, but I will say that I have been amazed and appalled to see how many of my comments on Twitter where I'm asserting that Taylor Swift is a misandrist and that she has a problem with men and she shames and belittles men, how many of those comments are getting retweeted by Taylor Swift fans in a positive light, as in they're retweeting stuff like that and they're saying, damn right we hate men. This makes me like her even more. Go Queen. And then I even got a comment on Twitter. A woman says, the idea that it's been a secret that we Taylor Swift fans hate men is hilarious. We've always been very open about that fact. And so I think that the eye opener here for a lot of people, because of this Baldoni stuff and these release texts, is the eye opener is the degree to which Taylor Swift actually does have a problem with men, and the degree to which she is, yes, a modern day Me Too aggrieved feminist. And so I'm glad she's getting this press. I'm glad people are seeing it, and I hope that more comes out. So we've got a number of months until the May trial between Blake Lively and Baldoni, and it's even possible that Taylor Swift could get called as a hostile witness, which would be great.
We'll have to wait and see. All right, guys, before we move on, I want to ask you all to please hit the like button on this video. I see some conversation about it going on in the Rumble.
I'm just posting the video link right now. That's what I was doing right here. So for people who wonder why I'm not paying attention, I forgot to post the link to the show. So it's going up.
So guys, hit the like button on this episode. We appreciate that very much. I can like literally hear you typing. I love it.
Oh, yes.
All right, guys, let's move on. Let's talk about Kristen Stewart. Kristen Stewart is one of those characters where sometimes I feel like we end up beating up on her because she says the most 2018 feminist stuff, and it's like she hasn't looked around and realized that we are no longer in the year of our Lord 2018. We are in the year of our Lord 2026, and the same feminist talking points don't work the way that they used to on the general public. And she is back to doing that now, talking about how actresses just don't get the respect that male actors do, and that she didn't get respect until she became a director. I also found it funny that she actually used the term actresses because Hollywood loves the idea of using actor for both men and women, and they find it somehow sexist to refer to an actress as an actress. They want you to refer to them as an actor. But this is what it said. Kristen Stewart says that actresses get treated like shit, and it wasn't until she was seen as a director that people started talking to me like I'm somebody with a brain. This is the quote. People think anyone could be an actress, but the first time I sat down to talk about my movie as a director, I thought, wow, this is a different experience. They are talking to me like I'm somebody with a brain. There's this idea that directors have otherworldly abilities, which is not true. It's an idea perpetuated by men. Not to sound like I'm complaining all the time. I'm sorry, but it does sound like you're complaining all the time, and it's always sounded that way. I'm going to get back to the quote here, but it's worse for female actors than male ones. Oh, never mind. She did it. She said female actors. She didn't say actresses. It's worse for female actors than male ones. They get treated like puppets, but they are not. And then she refers to somebody in her new movie giving her body and soul to this movie. Does that mean that the men weren't giving their body and soul to this
She's
film?
Another one who just complains too much. Yeah. I'm tired of her too.
Okay, so the first thing I want to ask you is, do you believe that it's true that female actors are treated worse than male ones?
I don't, I just think that it's a different, like as in life as well. I think it's often just a different set of problems, but I don't think that one gender has it easy. So is there one gender that gets more unwanted sexual attention? Yes. Sure, the female gender. Is there one gender that is judged more according to its appearance and physique? Yes, the female gender. But do I think that these things do not happen with men? No. And do I think that men have it easier in Hollywood? No.
Well, the thing is, I think it actually speaks more to your resume and your experience, right? So yeah. The lower card actor is going to lament what it's like to be unseen on set and never get the break that they want. And the funny thing is, that's a unifying idea. It's a unifying idea to think about the idea of the struggling actor, right? It's both men and women. Men and women both enter Hollywood with a strong desire to they both want to succeed. They have to realistically approach it differently. And I do think that one of the complaints that you could make is that in old Hollywood, women existed on a faster timetable than men, whereas a guy could enter Hollywood in his 20s and not really come into his own until his late 30s or 40s. I mean, there's so many actors. I wish I could name some of them off the top of my head if I was really good at my job.
No, I know what you mean.
There are a lot of actors that don't even, like, you hear about these actors that didn't even start until they were in their late 30s or in their 40s.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman, I think, is one of those, and I know what you're talking about. And there are others,
but for women, you could make the argument, especially back in the day, that they were on a faster timetable and they needed to reach the pinnacle of success faster because theoretically the roles would end up drying up for them. That is not the case anymore, and do not let anybody tell you that. They go out of their way now to put women in roles that are for all demographics. And you're going to find work, right? Michelle Yeoh is getting tons of work these days, and it's not all just playing a grandmother. They get lots of roles, but even then they will complain and say that it's ageist because they're not getting the types of roles that they want.
Right.
And I don't think that they really... Now, I understand that her audience is going to eat this stuff up, but the average everyday person is like, look, you achieved an incredible amount of success at a very early age with Twilight. You've gone on now to not just be a successful actor, but you're also now a director, and you're still lamenting the struggles of your gender rather than telling everybody perhaps what it is that has changed in the industry, because clearly things have changed.
Yeah, I think that is a really tired, worn out idea that women have a time limit on them that men don't have in the industry. I agree with you. There are tons of roles across film and TV for middle-aged to older women, and I think that there are a ton of meaty roles. They might not be the sex symbol roles that some of the women still want to hang on to, but there are tons of roles for women, for older women. And also with plastic surgery and dermatological interventions like we've been talking about on this show. We talked about it a week ago with Nicola Peltz and how there are all of these different celebrities completely changed their faces. Women can now look younger longer, and they can extend their shelf life. So for example, and I know that there are some cases where the women look strange, and Nicole Kidman, I think she's still trying to get her face figured out, to be honest with you.
Look at Jennifer Beal. Look at Jennifer Beal. She's like 61. She looks like she's in her late 30s or early 40s.
Yeah, more and more women are seeing good doctors and doing things tastefully.
We got a $20 super chat here from Pat the Plumber. He says, one movie she's directed without cheating. I'm assuming he's saying name one movie she's directed without cheating. Nobody would be able to take you up on that.
Kristen Stewart?
Yeah. The Chronology of Water. I know this because it was in the article.
Yeah, shocking. You became famous as an actress and nobody cares about you being a director. Is that a surprise? Is that an injustice?
Well, there's also a difference between, so it's also not the concept of men that understand that directors have special insight. The idea is that men and women approach directing differently, which is something we've actually had multiple conversations on this channel about, is that women, and I'm not speaking to all women because somebody will eventually come in and tell me that I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm always skeptical of generalizations, but go on, make your point.
The point is that from what I've seen, whether it's from the likes of Olivia Wilde, Kristen Stewart, some of the other women that talk about what separates women directors from male directors, is that women directors are more pro-actor and more pro-collaboration, whereas male actors lean into the idea of like, this is what I need you to do.
Stanley Kubrick.
Say the words on the page as they're written. Do this because I'm the one in charge of getting this production done. Right. It's a less collaborative effort, and everybody that I've ever talked to that works in Hollywood has been quick to point out that a director's job is not to be polite, but to get the job done. A lot of trust has been put into them. A lot of money is being spent to deliver on a product that does not always leave room for collaboration. Now, there are examples on television. So the show Justified, which is one of my favorite shows of all time, starring Timothy Olyphant and
I know what you're talking about.
And Walton Goggins. Graham Yost, the guy who created that show, I think that's his name. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Might be thinking of somebody else. Graham Yost was extremely collaborative and allowed for improvisation from the actors. He leaned into the ability that these are great character actors. They've got these unique personalities. They understand who their character is. We'll let them vamp a little bit, and a lot of times it led to great results. But that doesn't mean that that's the best approach to filmmaking. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution for something like that. So when she talks about special, people act like directors have special abilities, no, but they have a lot of responsibility. Now, the point I made when I tweeted about this, I said, more often than not, if I watch a movie, I give the actor the benefit of the doubt long before I ever give the director or the writer the benefit of the doubt. So you will often hear the phrase, out of my mouth and many others, the actor did the best with what they were given. Okay. Very rarely will somebody be like, you know what? The director did the best with what they were given. No, it's because more is expected of a director than of an actor. The buck stops oftentimes with the person who put the words to page and the person whose job it was to bring them to life. Not the actor, but the guy giving the actor his direction. So it's got nothing to do with special abilities and everything to do with the fact that more responsibility is given to them.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm looking at the interview that she did here, some of the excerpts from it that you're talking about. And she says actresses get treated like shit. She says people think anyone could be an actress, but the first time I sat down to talk about my movie as a director, I thought, wow, this is different. They're talking to me like somebody with a brain. That's because the roles, the functions of an actor versus a director are very different. So of course, if your director sits down with you and starts talking about the vision for the film, you're going to be engaging with them on a multi-layered intellectual level. You sit down to talk to an actress, I'm sorry, but it is for the most part about, okay, this is what we're trying to get across here. Can you do this? Yeah. I mean, I just think that she's one of those women, just like Taylor Swift, who goes through life with this aggrieved filter for all of her experiences, and she filters everything through that sense of grievance. And so,
be a depressing way to live.
Well, and I know people like this. You know, I have come from academia where I knew many women, not all, but many women with this perspective, particularly, you know, in more liberal fields. And it's not that we don't experience sexism. Yes, it's not that we don't. Everybody experiences some form of bias in their lives. But I think that what these women lose sight of is that this is a universal experience, and that men as well have to deal with preconceived notions. Directors have to deal with their own pressures, just like you were talking about. The buck stops at the director's foot, so to speak. And so they have to deal in a lot of ways with pressures that the actors don't have to deal with. So I wish that people would go through life more with a sense of, wow, isn't it crazy and awesome? And aren't I lucky that I make millions of dollars to do what I love every day, instead of most people who have to go to Walmart and work and make minimum wage? It's like there's no gratitude.
I say the same thing to people who complain. Like there are certain jobs you get. We talked about this last week when we were talking about Lil Tay saying that it's difficult to be an OnlyFans creator and like you don't understand the work that goes into it. And I said, look, here's the thing. There are certain jobs like Lil Tay's job, or even my job here hosting a podcast. You forfeit the right to complain outwardly about your job because it's such a unique job that no matter what struggles there are to do your job, it's so unique and it's something that so many people would like to be able to try, that even if you do have grievances with your career, you will get no quarter from anyone if you complain about it. So suck it up. Do your job, do it to the best of your abilities, and be grateful that you have it, because nobody who swings a hammer for a living or drives a truck for a living is going to want to hear about how difficult it is to host a podcast. Even if you think it is, you forfeit the right to complain about it because it's horrible PR for yourself to do so.
It is. Now, I'm glad you brought this up, though, because I do have a beef with one of our viewers from last week. Okay. I don't know if you noticed this, and I agree with everything you've just said, but I will say an exception to this is when I, as a podcaster, videographer, whatever you want to call me, when I get criticism from fans sometimes for not doing things as they think I should, that's when I then will pull out you don't know what all is involved in this situation, in this job or hobby, sweetheart. So I noticed that last week, someone commented, I was trying to pull it up, but someone commented, they were annoyed apparently that you do not provide, basically like you don't tell them where like they can go for each part of the conversation, timestamps.
I mean, so here's the thing. We do like when our show is done, right? I do the post-production, I do I clip the show, I do the you know, me and like I make the thumbnails, schedule everything. Mary does the timestamps. I did do the timestamps for the 2 days Mary wasn't there like the other week. Some days I forget because I'm doing
I just want to say
things.
Like, I don't know what the situation is with timestamps or not, but this person was in a very sort of sarcastic way, unless I was misreading them, was complaining about that. What they said was, I guess it must take so long to do those timestamps because the timestamps weren't up. Let me just say to this person, and it's not my responsibility anyway, so it's not coming from personal personal annoyance. But yes, it wouldn't take so long if someone didn't have a bunch of other duties that they're also having to do. And so if Brett did not have a wife, if Brett did not have responsibilities from Timcast and Tim Pool, if this thing streaming, this enterprise were not so difficult and time consuming on multiple levels, then yes, maybe Brett would have plenty of time to provide the timestamps every time that you want them. But I guarantee you that Brett's life is extremely busy. And here's the thing that people don't understand. When you do this stuff that we do, this streaming and podcasting and social media stuff, and you also have a busy life, and you may also, in my case, have another job, or in your case, lots of responsibilities from Timcast and so forth, and busy lives with your families, there are things that you tell yourself, I'm going to have to let this slide, because if I don't let some things slide, then I'm just going to have to say no to the whole enterprise. So I hope that the viewers will understand that when there are certain things like the timestamps that are not to their liking, or that they would like to be produced and they're missing, that I hope they will understand that the more accommodating Brett and I become on things like that, the more stressed out we get. And one day there's going to come a point where we say, you know what, this is all just too much. I can't do it anymore. I'm shutting the whole thing down. And I wish people would keep that in mind, instead of assuming that if there aren't timestamps, it's because we're just over here like twiddling our thumbs and not providing them.
The thing is like, look, I get it. Okay. Like, first of all, the customer is always right. And no. I do not mind look, I'm not saying that I'm always going to get to it. And I do but I get everything else done. I get all the uploads done, all that stuff. I don't have a problem with them voicing their opinion on what they want done. Are they always respectful when they do it? No, but that's the nature of the internet. So guys, don't worry about that. Like that is what it is. I'm always going to do my best to make sure that we get the show out to you as best we can, get everything done.
He works so hard.
And that's
so
fine.
Hard.
And like when people have their critiques of it, I'm okay with that, because they're telling you what they want that would make the show better. There are days where it's like I'm exhausted and I'm just like, you read a comment like that and you get annoyed. But I remember that, you know what, if not for the person leaving the comment, you don't have a job to begin with. So I always appreciate the feedback. It does frustrate me sometimes, but it ain't, like I said.
Well, it's the attitude.
It's okay.
And you didn't see it ananyway.
I'm grateful for every single person who tunes in to watch.
You sound like Johnny Depp in that hostage video. Declare everything. No, but it really is one of those things where, like, the amount of work, just for this show that we do with me, Brett is contacting me the day before. We're hashing through different topics we might want to cover. Then today we're finalizing it, and then he's got all this tech stuff that he's got to do. And 2 hours before the show, I'm signing on so that we can do a sound check and we can run through everything we're going to talk about. And then I'm coming on it. Like, it's a lot.
And then still have internet issues before we go live.
Exactly.
And I'm like out on the island, like, guess I'm just going to talk about Sydney Sweeney. I'm going to look, like I said, it's this or I'm working a regular job. And if it's between working a regular job and this, there are days where you get frustrated, but to have an audience of any size of people that tune in to watch something like this, that is a blessing. And I do think that I do think that the actors could learn from that. I also believe in the concept of radical ownership of your actions and radical ownership of your situation. The second you give up your autonomy and you say, it's because I'm a woman, right, it's because I do this, it's because I host a podcast or something like that. Right. The second you give that ownership up, you give them a whole ton of power over you, and your ability to own your actions, own what happens, both good and bad, will benefit you long term. Now, is that always going to feel good? No, but I think for your own well-being, it would help Kristen Stewart to do that. I do laugh at her critique of where one thing she did say was that she thinks that men are given more leeway for being method actors than women. And I do think that there's probably something to that, because she talks about how the act of actually going out there and performing, of acting, is inherently embarrassing, and people method act as a way of sort of like minimizing that by making it more than it is. She's probably right by that. I can't think of any female method actors, so maybe she's right. I don't know. Do you know of any female method actors?
You know, strangely, the only one that's coming to mind is Marilyn Monroe. I'm not sure how successful it was, but she studied as a method actress. But I think, you know, she when she really got into acting, I think her problems were pretty far gone with the pills and everything. But no, I'm sure she has a good point. Kristen Stewart does. But overall, I'm just tired of her constant bitching.
Whining. All right.
Yes.
All right, guys, we have more stuff to get into. I'm going to let Kurtz cook. She is going to tell you what it is that she both loved and hated about the brand new movie 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. The problem with The Bone Temple, ladies and gentlemen, is that it made like no money. It made $12.5 million in its opening weekend, which is 60% behind what the last 28 Years Later movie made 7 months prior to that. And in week 2 made only $3.6 million, which is a 71% drop from week 1 to week 2, whereas the last movie made about $10 million in week 2. So it's down all around. And the number one reason for all this being, nobody knew that they had another one coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really bad marketing, and it was really bad marketing to the extent that I was surprised to find out that there was another one. The only reason I knew this is because I was looking at what was in theaters. I Googled what's in theaters locally, because my mom and I wanted to go see a movie, which did not turn out to be, thank God, The Bone Temple, and I'll tell you why in a moment.
The crazy thing about it is, though, is this was released 7 months after the last one, which is just a confounding choice to begin with. This has always failed. They mentioned it in the article, and it was the first thing I thought of when I saw the time frame, which is it took like 3 years after the first Matrix movie to get, what was it? Was that Reloaded? And then very soon after that, they did Reloaded and Revolutions at the same time, because they filmed them back to back. And with no time to breathe between the two movies, people are, first of all, there was posts on X where somebody was like people who worked at the movie theaters were like, this isn't a new one, is it? Like, are they just re-releasing? Because they do that now. They re-release movies in theaters. They thought that they re-released 28 Years Later and that it wasn't a sequel. It was a sequel, and nobody knew it was coming out. Not to mention, it got the dead January slot, which makes no sense when you could have waited longer, given that it was only 7 months between the two movies.
Yeah, so I mean, that's exactly right. You've diagnosed right there what the problem was. I think also the title was problematic because it's titled 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Well, we already had 28 Years Later. So yes, I get it. This is the sequel in that anthology, but even the title was confusing for people because people thought it was the same movie. Like you said, it wasn't given a chance to breathe. And it's unfortunate because I thought, as a fan of horror films, I thought this was an absolutely fabulous movie.
Everybody I've seen has given it great reviews.
Really?
And this is a return to form for Nia DaCosta, who is still trying to wipe off the stink that was the Marvels in 2023, because they even mentioned that in some of the articles that she's got these other movies that were very successful, and we'll pretend like the Marvels didn't happen because, reasons. So it's a return to form. The reviewers that I watched, at least the people that I regularly check in, they seem to like this movie a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And I did not like the earlier 28 Years Later. I did like 28 Days Later, although it's not my favorite horror movie or anything, but I did like that. And I like 28 Weeks Later a lot. I was pretty disappointed by the movie, the 28 Years Later, the original one that came out, like you said, 6 or 7 months ago. I was pretty disappointed by it. It had some artistic flourishes that I appreciated that were interesting, but I just thought it was kind of a snooze. This one was the opposite of that, and I've never seen a movie like this in the entire zombie genre. That tonally, the first part of it felt like a straight up torture porn, like Saw movie. And by the way, if you're going into this and you're not prepared for that, which I wasn't, which is fine, but I wasn't prepared for it. I'm glad that I didn't end up bringing my mom, because it is a hard film. There's a sequence, about a 15-minute sequence in particular, that's really, really hard to take, even for people who are experienced horror fans like myself. But it has a really, really especially dark tone and dark thematically. But I have to say, where it ends up is on a really kind of interesting, hopeful note. And so I liked the tonal shifts. I thought that they were really well done. I thought that the plot was interesting. It took a number of twists that I wasn't expecting. And just aesthetically, as a work of art, there were some really, really powerful moments and really powerful set pieces in this. Jack O'Connell was also fabulous as a villain. And Ray Fiennes is always great. So anyway, I totally recommend people see it. Know, though, that you are going to have a really difficult 10 to 15 minute sequence that you're going to have to, maybe you just step out of the theater if you don't like that kind of scene, because it is brutal. And someone was asking me, one of my friends was saying, come on now, like I've seen a lot of horror movies. Was it really that hard to take? You know, was it like a Serbian film, which is a movie that horror fans know is notorious? And yeah, there was one scene in particular that was, even for someone like me who's seen it all, it was really, really rough. But it did have a logical place in the film. It did not feel like it was there just for exploitation reasons. But it was definitely a different movie, and Nia DaCosta really went for it. And I hope that it can make some money maybe on the back end, that once the word gets out that there's a new film and that it's really good, people will go see it.
What separated it from the previous film?
Well,
because you said you didn't like the previous one, but this one you did.
Yeah, so the previous one had a much more, it was much more interested in the emotional dynamics of a particular family, and it was almost kind of a coming of age, Bildungsroman type film about a young boy and his estrangement from his father. And there was a baby involved, a newborn that they were trying to save. And so to me, it felt like more of a sentimental film. It felt like it was more low key. It did not even really seem to emphasize horror for the most part. And this, on the other hand, was just a brutal horror film, to the point that it did feel like an exploitation film at times. And so to me, this was just much more of a horror film. The other almost felt like a kind of a zombie drama, more so than a horror movie.
Do you agree with the notion? So one of the most interesting things about the article, and I did kind of take it to heart afterwards, they said for some reason zombies have a much stronger hold, or let's face it, they used to have a much stronger hold on television than they do in films. Like the history of zombies
Walking
in film
Dead
is not as successful as it is in television.
Well, maybe. I think it's more that, especially for a certain period of time, there was just such a glut of zombie movies out there that it probably felt like oversaturated. And so maybe there were films that didn't do so well. But I mean, I still think that some of the best horror movies, even in the last 25 years, were zombie films. Like, I love the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead, Ving Rhames in the shopping mall. I think that's one of my favorite horror movies, period. And I think that was a great zombie movie. So I don't know, but I get your point there, because The Walking Dead, it was such a giant success, and it spawned sequels, and it's been going on forever. So it's certainly, I mean, when you have that kind of a success, that's huge.
I just wonder if it's like, first of all, I made the point, I said it got the dead month of January.
Yeah.
That's not actually, I'm walking back my critique with that, because January isn't always a dead month for horror movies. And there are a lot of horror movies. You guys know, I'm not, like, it's just not my genre. Never have. Whenever Mike Harlow.
It's like me and superhero movies. I just don't like them.
Whenever Mikey Harlow is on the show, me and him go back and forth, because he's always like, you're a horror film fanatic and you just don't know it yet. It's not my genre. But one thing that I do laud Hollywood for is they need to understand that horror movies seem to be the most financially dependable genre they have when you relate it to budget versus return on investment, which is that the horror movies, even the ones that fail, oftentimes don't fail at the level of some of the blockbusters, because they are so cheap to make. They can end up if not turning a profit, they lose little money because it doesn't cost as much to make, and that's a good return on investment for them. Now, I haven't been a fan of the fact that they're trying to do the nostalgia horror, like trying to bring back I Know What You Did Last Summer, which was just, I don't want to see that, because those movies played such a part in my childhood. I don't want to see them ruin those franchises.
Well, they're just so mediocre. Like, even that one, I know it got some good reviews, but it had a cool twist at the end, and I won't give it away, but it got Gabriette in it, who's amazing. But it felt like, it felt like a mediocre, watered down retread.
Do you think that it's possible, and I do think that this could be true, that that Bone Temple will end up becoming more significant with a digital release?
Absolutely. I think that once people actually see this film and are exposed to it, which they will be if it comes out on, you know, Netflix or Prime or whatever, I think that absolutely it'll have a huge resurgence there. So I'm looking forward to that, people seeing it. Again, just be warned about the rough 10 or 15 minutes. You'll know it when you see it in the first part.
Well, why don't you give people a little bit of a hint of what it is?
Oh, well, so it's no secret if you've seen the other film, the first 28 years later, that where it leaves off at the end is that the main character, the kid, he joins a kind of cult devoted to fighting zombies, which seems at the end of 28 years later is this really cool thing, because these people come out of nowhere and they dress like Jimmy Savile, you know, the notorious child abuser. And so they have like they're dressed in track suits and they've got blonde wigs or dyed blonde hair, so it's kind of interesting. But and they're doing a parkour basically as part of their killing these zombies. Anyway, so that's where it opens up. And so what basically happens is that you have, from the word get, the very first scene of the Bone Temple, the main character realizes that he has been saved by and is now trapped in this murderous psychopathic cult run by a Satanist. And so basically in the first part of the film, they're going around to different homes and they are taking the spoils, so to speak, of war. They're killing the inhabitants of these houses. So it's the humans basically who are the monsters in this, kind of like the first 28 days later from years ago. They're going around terrorizing the human survivors, taking what they can, stealing, and then torturing them. So it's a torture scene.
Okay. All right. You know what I think they should make? We need Hallmark horror movies. So
you should try it.
So, you know, the ad executive from the big city has to go home, but instead of going home for Christmas, she has to go home for Halloween, and she meets a man who works at a pumpkin patch, because that's a thing. And, you know, it's not a Christmas tree farm. It's a pumpkin patch. And, you know, her husband back home, who's always working, he's at an ad agency too, or he's a lawyer, and he doesn't pay any attention to her, and she's too busy for him. Well, she falls in love with the man, you know, working at the pumpkin patch, who she went to high school with. And then either her husband, out for revenge, or perhaps another guy in high school who she never gave the time of day to, goes on a murderous rampage, and he wears a giant pumpkin on his head. And that's how we make the movie.
Okay.
That's what we need to do. So if women get to take over the superhero genre, and I have to worry about, you know, women making the superhero movies they've always wanted to make, then I demand we get Hallmark horror movies. That's what we need.
Try to find some investors.
Let's do it. All right, guys, we are going to go to Super Chats, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I want to thank every single one of you for joining us today. It's the show is not possible if it is not for you guys. So let's go ahead and see what everybody's got to say. Shane H. Wilder says, Happy Taco Tuesday, Kurtz and Dasovic. I'm flying. There it was. Rip to whoever's upstairs right now. I warned Brian before the show. I said, just as a heads up, I am doing the crisis parties through the speaker again, because it's the only way I can do it without having to worry about quickly doing it with the Stream Deck. And then you wouldn't be able to hear it if we did it that way. So he said, okay, that's fine. So Brian is a good sport.
Thank you, Brian.
Shane H. Wilder says, Happy Taco Tuesday, Kurtz and Dasovic. I'm flying today since I had to rebook. Should I reenact unaccompanied minors since I'm at the airport till 5:50? No, what you should do is you should reenact Home Alone 2, and you should run into the person at the gate and make them drop all of their paper tickets, which they probably don't have anymore because nobody actually prints out paper tickets anymore, and then see if they will just let you board the plane without actually confirming as to whether or not you were on that particular flight, and then you could end up in New York City, like Home Alone 2. No?
Sure.
Okay. Brian Bledsoe says, thought I was smart by rescheduling my flight to Texas to Monday, but still got delayed and canceled multiple times. Went to Alabama just to get somewhat closer. At least the March for Life went well. Good. Well, I'm glad you guys, I know Shane was in town for March for Life as well. The real question is, Brian, did you meet up with Shane? Did you have like an unprompted PCC meetup at the March for Life? I went to the March for Life once to film a video with Seamus, and he was like a movie star there. Seamus Coughlin, he does Freedom Tunes, the cartoons on YouTube. He's a very prominent conservative Catholic YouTuber and personality, and it was like they were meeting Michael Jackson at the March for Life. That's how popular he was.
Oh.
Shane H. Wilder says, I wish I saw... Oh, you didn't see him. He says, I wish I saw you there. My mini doc on the March for Life will be done in a week or two. Well, awesome. I look forward to it. Honky username I will not pronounce because Mary does not pronounce this one either. Oh, no. Breast milk. How awful. What was it you were saying earlier about... Oh, it was the trapped, like people trapped.
Oh, yes.
Is that a real thing?
Yes, yeah. So it is a real thing, and actually it's happened in more than one occasion, because I was looking up survival stories, and this is something that, so if you're going to get stuck in some kind of survival situation where you don't have access to food or water, it helps to be with a recent mother, we'll put it that way.
Okay. I mean, I would say just don't get stuck. That would be... So I actually have thoughts about this. So my problem was I lived in Minnesota for the first 36 years of my life. Mm-hmm. I faced down many snowstorms throughout my life, lots and lots of bad weather, lots of power outages, lots of roads which you can barely get around. And I'm going to tell you this. It was better before you had to have influencers on social media posting nonstop weather fear porn.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, the roads are going to be, it's going to be the southern border wall of ice and snow on the freeway. The power's going to be out. You're going to die of exposure. Get 9 gallons of water. Look, I'm not saying you don't need to be prepared, because you do, but the world was better before we had to endure all of the weeks worth of fear porn before you got to the actual storm itself. By the time you get to the actual storm, you've already gone through a bunch of people trying to scare the piss out of you by telling you everything that's going to happen. And then it ended up being, now, to be fair, a lot of snow fell. My car is still, because we were out of town driving our other car, my car is still snowed in. But guess what? I'm going to have to get home from work tonight. I'm going to go, because last night when we got in town, where we live, there's like, they plowed, but they had to plow around the cars parked. And then even on the sides that didn't have cars parked, they didn't even plow close enough to the curb. So I had to actually dig out a spot for us to park last night. Like, that would have been fine. I could have done all of that without somebody trying to scare the shit out of you for ad revenue on social media. That's all I'm saying.
Right. I agree.
All right. Sydney Sweeney. That'd be funny if you think Sydney Sweeney has a YouTube channel, like a burner account that she's like.
She's too busy for that. She's working like 16-hour days on doing Euphoria.
Jennifer Lawrence is plenty busy, and she said she has a burner account on TikTok in which she gets into like flame wars with people in the TikTok comment section. So there is like, these people are multitaskers. She can do that. She can post her lingerie, video releases and talk shit on the internet. Sorry. Shane H. Wilder says, if she had tried to put the bras on the first O, I would have laughed because Alice Vooper owns the letter. I'm assuming he means Alice Cooper. He bought it in honor of Groucho Marx. Okay. I did not know that. And that she looked like she draped him over a bunch of the letters, and nobody in their right mind believes that she didn't have permission to do that. I'm sorry. All right. Robert Delara says Sydney Sweeney was just doing a promotional marketing ploy. Also, it's not like she threw paint on the Mona Lisa. The Hollywood sign is an overrated landmark anyways. Well, yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's very clear that I don't think anyone buys that even if she did do something without permission, that she's going to jail or that she's going to get a ticket. I don't believe that.
Right.
All right, Dan M said wanted to send 20 USD, forgot about the currency conversion. Thank you for that. What is because he sent a 20 earlier. What is A? What is the A currency? Is that Australia? Yes, because I see it for Katie's, and I believe Katie is in Australia. So perhaps Dan M is also in Australia. If so, thank you, my friend. All right. Shane H. Wilder says, so is Kanye going back on IRL to apologize to Tim? That would be hilarious. That would be hilarious if he went back on Timcast and didn't walk out this time. And he actually answered the question, who they is, though. Who is they, though?
I just find him so boring at this point now, to be honest with you. I hope his music is good. He's making good music, but it's just you do reach a point where I think everyone is just, they're shocked out they're bored. And like, I just don't care what he does at this point. Kanye would have to set himself on fire at this point for me to care.
That way, and even
Which
then,
I hope he doesn't.
And even then, that would be less than shocking.
Man.
All right. Morgan Xavier says, my hubby is bipolar. I've learned over 18 years to cope with his Jekyll and Hyde personality shifts. He's worth the stress. Not sure about Kanye, though. Yeah, you know, like, you would hope that your husband, you know, when he's at his best is better than Kanye. And good on you for being like that can't be an easy thing to commit to when, you know, life throws unbelievable hurdles at you. Staying committed and, you know, being with the person that you love, that's an important thing. So good job. Man Bear Cow TV says, if you marry Gene Simmons, you deserve cheating.
Yeah.
It's kind of
I'm
like,
sure she knew. I'm sure she knew going into it. I think the annoyance was that he got caught. Actually, he got caught on video. Someone videotaped him at a bar making out with someone or a party or something. And I think that's at least in this reality show.
That's what happened. No, I think your screen froze. That's okay. We'll just keep reading the super chats here. We're almost done anyways, guys. All right. Hopefully she gets the internet back and it gets fixed. It's not easy being there in the cupboard. Shane H. Wilder says, I'm telling you right now, those knockers are not real. Yeah, that was kind of my my push on the thumbnail when I was making this. That's what we're going to make the thumbnail about, is whether or not Sydney Sweeney's real or not. Greg Duvier says, thank you. Thank you. I finally found someone else that knows Major League 2 is better than Major League. Look, for me, man, it's just because I actually saw Major League 2 before Major League 1 just because we owned it on VHS. I don't know if we actually owned Major League 1. So I watched it infinitely more times, like literally hundreds of times I've watched that movie. Made me wonder why the Chicago White Sox had to be the bad guys in movies multiple times. But I love that film. I love that film so much. Jack Parkman is my hero. Brian Bledsoe says, as a twice divorced trucker, I agree. Well, yeah, that was the point early, man. It's not an easy thing to commit to, you know, like it just seems like so much of it falls apart because people don't realize that when you commit, you're supposed to commit for life. And that means through hard times. And if somebody's providing and their job is something that keeps them on the road like that, that just can't be an easy thing to do. But it also is one of those things where you have to work it out and you have to figure it out together. Chief Corey Anderson says, are you in a pantry? Yes, she is in a pantry, or she was in a pantry. We'll have to wait and see if she gets back here. The internet finally went out on her. Chief Corey Anderson continues, I am so angry right now. I feel like the country is dead, and it's a husk of a corpse that is being cut away and sold to the lowest bidder. Well, Corey, what story is it that's... like whenever I see these types of comments, because I understand, like I fall into the black pill category a lot of the times too. What stories is it that you've been reading about? Is it the ICE stuff in Minneapolis? What are the stories that have you feeling that way right now? Is it Trump's response to all of that? Let me know. Y'all, Chief Corey Anderson also adds, and no one cares and no one is willing to do anything about it. What is the answer then? I guess the hard question is, what is the answer to something as difficult as saving a country that has fallen into the state that it has recently? with the right focusing on illegal immigration and deportations, the far left, obviously being far better organized and rebelling. Look at what's happening with the Signal chat and how well organized and active everyone is there, and the fact that people can't even agree on a definition for what makes the country what it is today. Imagine like you have a reasonable, and I'm just kind of, I guess I'm kind of reading into it in my own way here. But if we're talking about the situation with, deportations and immigration and the tragic incidents that have happened in Minneapolis, how do you even have a discussion with someone now if you don't believe in, illegal immigration, and you do believe that deportations are necessary, and you take a principled stance on it where you understand that it's not easy and what's going on right now is awful but necessary? How do you have that discussion with someone who's, long and short of it ends with basically, why can't we all just get along and imagine if these were your friends and neighbors, which is an emotional, it's a plea to emotion that makes it so difficult, because that's what's so insidious about it, is that now that so many people are in country and they're your friends and they're your neighbors and you love them as your neighbor, but you also know that policy is not the same thing as personal experience, how do you come back for that? Functionally, you're living in a completely different reality than those who see the world differently than you. And we can't even agree on what makes America America anymore. So how do you solve that problem? I don't know. I don't know the answer to all of that. Carnell says, could the reason that we don't see female method acting be attributed to the anecdote about how boys and girls play differently with toy figures? Possibly. I actually tend to fall into the category that I feel like a lot of the time, acting is in itself, like, I don't know if any of you actually tried acting, whether it was like in a fan, like a student film, or you just acted with your friends. It actually is, there is a barrier to the average person about feeling silly. And when you watch the final product of a movie, the music is added, the scenes are cut together in a tight manner, which keeps the story going and fast paced. You emotionally invest in what you're watching. But when you're out of that moment and you're in a quiet soundstage or you're in a quiet room, there's a whole row of people behind you watching, there's a guy with a boom mic, and you have to access those emotions. That's not easy. And for men, it may feel like there may be a defense mechanism there that is biologically different, where men don't buy into it as easy, and they need to find an emotional way around it that allows them to invest in what they're doing to make it feel more grandiose than it is. Whereas women, in a collaborative effort, who are more in tune with their emotional sense, they may not have as difficult of a time reaching that. I made a post last week, I think we mentioned this on the show, where I said, look at these pictures of Paul Walker and Jennifer Love Hewitt and their ability to smile in a way that reaches their eyes. Now, that sounds easy on paper, but is actually incredibly difficult. Both of those actors smile in a manner that actually draws you deeper into the story of what you're watching. And that's a crazy thing to think about as something that you'd think it would just come naturally to actors. But I watch things all the time where their emotional response doesn't actually line up with the emotional level of what is being presented on screen. So men and women may simply have a different approach to that. And, I guess that's a testament to the women's ability to buy in. And it's a testament to the lengths men are willing to go to be good at their craft. Shane H. Wilder says, damn it, Kurtz, never bring up Serbian film. I started it and threw up. That movie, and I use that term loosely, has a special place in hell. There you have it. Greg Dubier says, Shaun of the Dead is the only good zombie movie. All right. Got a couple more here. Shane H. Wilder says, I did see Jack Posobiec. We took a selfie with our rosaries. We didn't talk much as he was working throughout, and so was I. Well, I hope that the documentary comes out well, and I hope that you had an edifying time while you were there. I won't say nourishing. Chief Corey Anderson says, I just want the GOP to be as evil as the Democrats. Is that so much to ask for? Look at how fast Virginia went down the toilet. I mean, Yeah, I mean, we should get some people on here and debate. It would have nothing to do with Pop Culture Crisis, but I'm sure lots of people would like to get into it and have a debate on what's going on here. But paying extra close attention to politics is something that will blacken your soul very quickly. I recommend trying to find a way to get away from it as quickly and as often as you can. Stay informed, but find something in the real world. And Corey, I believe you're married, correct? Let your family, your kids, if you have them, the hobbies that you love to do, the things that kind of fulfill you outside of politics, let that stuff be the anchor that helps you stay sane in a world that oftentimes starts to feel more and more insane each and every day. It's the only way that we can really get through it. At least that's my focus. When politics black pills me, I focus on the fact that I still love skating more than anything else in the world, and I love to get out and exercise in a way that makes me feel like I've accomplished something. And I focus on my wife and being the best husband that I can be, and making sure that I do that, early on in marriage, and setting the tone for a lifelong commitment. And doing all that kind of fills me with a sense of purpose that helps me look past the back and forth of politics. I've actually found myself, I look at the debates that people are having about things, about different political situations these days, and what would have filled me with anger or make me resign to get in the fray and debate, what would have done 10 years ago doesn't do that anymore. And I just have things in the real world that help me stay kind of grounded and focus on that. It's not an excuse to not pay attention to what's going on. You should, but you should also find a way to detach yourself from it, because you do no help to the world when you yourself end up harmed by your own intake of the news. So just my thoughts on the matter. Not that anybody actually cares about those two thoughts. Couple more here. I just had my screen. Oh my gosh, guys. My screen just timed out on Brave browser. You guys don't know how hard it is to be a podcaster, and a male podcaster at that. You just don't get it, okay? It's just so much easier for female podcasters and for people who watch podcasters. You guys just don't get it. I refuse to add a tone indicator. Shane H. Wilder says nourishing. Blech. Get that shit out of here. Get that word out of here. Chief Corey Anderson says, was Vincent okay during the storm? Yes, I do know for a fact that Vincent is okay, because our cat sitter also took care of Vincent. If you don't know, we have a very dedicated cat sitter here in the city that we live in. She doesn't just help us out when we're out of town. She and Olivia take care of the neighborhood cats that live over by City Hall. And they built him a weathered shelter for the snowstorm, and he is in fact okay. So we love Vincent here at Pop Culture Crisis. All right, one more here from Pat the Plumber. Says, yummy breast milk is nourishing my body while stuck in this pantry. Well, you spelled breast wrong, and that reminds me that I refrained from making a joke about Sydney Sweeney possibly being abreasted rather than arrested, but who would have laughed at that, right? Nourishing is the worst word in the English language. People's hatred of the word moist is a psyop done by the internet and Reddit. People don't actually hate the word moist. They've just been programmed by big data and big message board to hate that word as a means of making some sort of mimetic post that then went viral. It's all a psyop. Nobody actually hates that word. If that word bothers you, you have been programmed without even realizing it. You should touch grass. You should get off the internet. It will save your life, I promise. And then you can admit that the word moist isn't that bad. All right, guys. Before we go, would you hit the like button on this video, and would you subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed here yet already? Colonel Kurtz obviously had some tech issues at the end. Luckily, we were through all of the segments, so we only had the super chats there. You should go and follow her on social media, follow her on X, and then go and check out her channel on YouTube. It's linked. Well, it's not linked. Her page is tagged in the post below because I tagged her. It's at Colonel Kurtz 99, but you should go find her on YouTube. She does unbelievable coverage in the pop culture sphere, and she's always a pleasure to have here on Pop Culture Crisis. If you want to watch this, if you want to listen to this podcast rather than watch this podcast, which you can do, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Spotify. That is the best way to listen rather than watch. I would also appreciate if you guys would rate and review on Apple Podcast and on Spotify. That is a great way to help the channel out. And if you want to follow us on social media, Twix at PopCulture_show, Facebook at Pop Culture Crisis, Instagram at Pop Culture Crisis Pod. If you want to follow me, guys, I am on Instagram and on X at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here today. You guys always hang with us through all of the tech issues, the ups and the downs, all of the laughter as well. It's a pleasure and an honor to be able to host this podcast, and I thank each and every one of you who tunes in and watches us. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back with another episode with Mary tomorrow. I will see you guys then. Later, everybody.